Oh, hey, I wasn't quite ready. Sorry about that. Hey, Crim 4, here is Chapter 3, Arrest and Custody. What is an arrest? An arrest has been defined as the taking of a person into custody in the manner authorized by law. I think you all know what an arrest is, when someone is basically taken into custody and alleged to have committed a criminal act. Is there such thing as a citizen's arrest? Absolutely. This does still remain. It is legal. Not something I think I personally would do, unless, if it was, the circumstances would have to be pretty drastic for me to step in, because I think these things can sometimes turn very tragic. But citizen's arrests are still something that do happen. Most arrests take place by a law enforcement officer, someone who is sworn to uphold the law. You must have probable cause to arrest someone, but you don't have to have a warrant to arrest someone. And when we're talking about probable cause, we are referring to the fact that there is reason to believe that a crime has been committed and that the person being arrested committed that crime. Okay, probable cause. There's reason to believe that a crime has been committed and the person to be arrested is the one who committed that. Now, arrest without a warrant is much more common than with a warrant. And let me explain why. Typically, if someone gets arrested, they're typically there when the cops get there. Let's say my husband punched me in the face, broke my nose, and hit me in the head with a baseball bat. Okay, I know I like to be a little extreme. Would he ever do that to me? No. But let's just say he did, and I called the police. And the police get here, but my husband took off because he knew he was going to get arrested. So the cops get here, and they're obviously thinking that he needs to be arrested because he assaulted me, and I am in bad shape with broken bones and stuff like that. So he's not here. They asked me, do you know where he is? I have no idea where he is. They have no leads. They have no idea where he is. So at that point, they're going to probably prepare an arrest warrant for him. So the next time he has contact with any kind of law enforcement, he'd be arrested. Okay? Typically, the man, he would still be here and officers would just arrest him when they came, when I called the police, so they wouldn't need a warrant for that kind of arrest. But if he wasn't here, and they didn't know where he was, they would issue a warrant for his arrest. I hope that makes sense. Typically, officers cannot go into a private home to make a warrantless arrest. But, there's always a but, it feels like. If there are exigent or emergency circumstances or consent, then the police can actually go into someone's house. And by exigent circumstances, we're just talking about basically it's a life or death situation where someone is at imminent or immediate risk of death or great bodily injury. Then officers might be able to go into someone's home, but otherwise, or consent, if someone who lives in the home opens the door and says, come on in. But otherwise, you're pretty safe in your own home. Arrest with warrants. There's very few times that people are actually arrested for misdemeanors with warrants. But searches of arrested people. Okay, so let's say I am in my car, parked in front of my house. I just pulled up to my house. I'm in my car. My purse. I'm getting out of my car. I put my purse on my shoulder. And the police roll up. I'm out front. I'm not in the driveway. I'm out front. And I'm walking, toward my house, and officers arrest me. What can they search? And it's a legal arrest. Well, I did something horrible. Ooh, I gotta make something up, but I didn't yet, so. What can they search? They can search me, right? Because they don't want to take me to jail and have, me full of drugs or guns or stuff like that. Can they search my purse that's on my shoulder? Yeah, I have access to my purse, right? I can reach my purse. I have easy access to my purse. My car, it depends on how close I am to my car. They're probably not going to be able to pop my trunk open and look in my trunk because I didn't have easy, immediate access to my trunk. But maybe to my floorboard, maybe to my glove box, maybe to the little side door panels. Then they want to go in and search my house. Can they do that without a warrant? They just arrested me. That's search incident to a lawful arrest, isn't it? The answer is no. No, that is not search incident to a lawful arrest. So no, they cannot do that. They can only, if I'm arrested, they can only search things that I may have had immediate access to. Jurisdiction. This is a muddy subject that we're going to talk about a little bit more later. But on the subject of jurisdiction, let's talk about Fresno PD and Clovis PD. Just because that's easy. There was I'm making this up. There was a carjacking at Shaw and Temperance in Clovis. And officers spotted the vehicle at that corner, and Clovis police officers started to pursue that vehicle westbound on Shaw toward the city of Fresno. Once they drive through Shaw and Willow and they enter the city of Fresno, do they have to stop? They're Clovis police officers. No, they don't have to stop. That's fresh pursuit. It would be a really good idea for them to let Fresno PD know that they were on their way, but they don't have to. So there are different types of law enforcement agencies, local agencies, Fresno PD, Fresno County Sheriff's Department, Sanger, Selma, Reedley, you name it. Those are all smaller local agencies. State police agencies, all states have them except for Hawaii. We have the California Highway Patrol, Alcohol and Beverage Control, State Center Community College Police, the UC, University of California Police, Fresno State, CSU Police. So there are different police agencies throughout the state. Federal law enforcement agencies, FBI, CIA, DEA, Homeland Security, and they all have different kind of jurisdiction type of areas, meaning the feds can go pretty much anywhere. The state police can have jurisdiction anywhere in the state, and then your locals typically will have jurisdiction in whatever their city or county is. Okay, these are the code sections that give officers the power to make arrests. Any peace officer who has reasonable cause to believe that the person to be arrested has committed a public public offense may use reasonable force. There's one of my favorite words again, reasonable. What is reasonable force? We've seen a lot of interesting ideas of reasonable force lately. To effect the arrest, to prevent escape, or overcome resistance. So, I know I have to pause here because we know that we have seen a lot of really bad examples of police force throughout history, to be honest, but recently it has kind of come to more public. It's become more public knowledge. It's become more discussed, more talked about, all that kind of stuff. This word right here is a word that makes it really challenging to define. What is reasonable force? What is reasonable force to you? And in what situation? It's very hard to say. Is it reasonable to shoot someone 7 times in the back? It certainly doesn't seem that that would be reasonable. But let's talk about Tennessee versus Garner. Tennessee versus Garner is a case where a 15-year-old kid was burglarizing a home. It was a hot prowl, meaning the homeowner was home. They called the police. Police came, and the kid saw the police and ran out the back of the house. And as he was jumping the back fence to try and get away, he was shot in the back and killed, I believe. Is that a good use of force? And I'm going to tell you that it is not. He was unarmed, and he was committing a property offense. So when people say things like, you can use deadly force to prevent an escape, no, not necessarily. Now, if the kid had an assault rifle in his hands and was making threats to shoot up an elementary school, maybe you got a different story there. That was not the case. So Tennessee versus Garner is one of the first cases that really limited this use of force. If an officer needs help, they can summons you for help. They can take your car. Resisting arrest. This is a very common offense. People will resist, they pull away, they delay, obstruct, lie, run, you name it, very common. And they are charged typically with an additional crime. Miranda. You all have heard of Miranda. So Miranda resulted from a case that took place in Arizona. I know you're shocked. Miranda versus Arizona, where Ernesto Miranda, I believe he raped and killed some woman. Then he was questioned by police, and he confessed. And after he confessed, he talked to an attorney who told him, well, you didn't have to talk to the police. And he was like, what? I didn't know that. So now, every time a person is in custody and feels they are in custody and questioned, they have to have their Miranda rights read to them. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to talk to an attorney and have him present with you when you're being questioned. If you cannot afford one, one will be appointed to represent you before any questioning if you wish. Do you wish to talk to me? Do you wish to waive those rights? So that's basically Miranda. And everyone who is questioned while in custody has to hear those rights and has to waive those rights. And by waive those, say, yes, I understand them, and yes, I want to talk to you. Okay, so some pre-Miranda techniques. Let's see. Brown versus Mississippi. This is a case where he initially denied his involvement in a murder, so they hung him by a rope from a tree until he confessed. This guy, Ashcroft, was questioned continuously for 2 days without food or sleep until he finally confessed. This guy, Spano versus New York, Spano knew the rookie police officer. They were friends when they were kids. So the rookie police officer said, hey, I know that guy. I grew up with him. And the rookie police officer's boss told the rookie police officer, tell Spano that you're going to get fired if you can't get him to confess. So Spano confessed because, so that was, what did they call that? They called that, they just called it involuntary. And then Escobedo was the case where Escobedo's attorney was at the police station, but the police officers didn't tell him. So they just kept questioning him and didn't give him access to his attorney. Kind of a problem. So, when you're considering Miranda and whether or not a person has actually waived those rights, they have to consider, number one, was the statement that the person gave voluntary? Did they give it of their own free will? Was the Miranda warning given? Okay, this whole section is exactly the same. Was there a waiver? And was the waiver intelligent and voluntary? Okay. So there have been some cases that have taken place since Miranda that have kind of made it a little bit less, I don't know, I don't want to use the word strong, but strong is kind of the word that I want to use. Some of them had, I don't remember which ones these are. There's a whole bunch of different cases. Some of them had to do with an undercover officer going into jail with the police, with the defendant, but because the defendant didn't know he was undercover, the court ruled that they didn't need Miranda. These cases are all listed in your book. Some people have immunity from arrest. This is interesting. Diplomatic officers, so if you're somebody from another country, maybe, they may have immunity. Consular immunity, so we have consulates. There's a Mexican consulate for sure in Fresno. I've seen that. If people are working at the consulate from another country, sometimes they are immune from our laws. Legislative immunity and out-of-state witnesses. So these are instances where people might not actually be subject to the same laws that everybody else is. Booking, I'm not sure how booking even fits in here, but whatever. Booking, this is when a person goes into custody in jail. This consists of... Okay, sorry about that. Yes, my dogs didn't recognize my husband and my son because they got new haircuts. Anyways, okay, so they get booked into the jail. They're identified, fingerprinted, photographed, all that kind of stuff. They do have a right to have a phone call. What else? A citation is basically a notice to appear. It's basically when an officer gives you a ticket and says, I am allowing you to go home, but you still have to appear in court for whatever the offense is. So that's what a citation is. And ultimately, the citation typically becomes the charging document. Summons. A summons is an order by a court, and a court will actually order you to appear in court. A jury summons is a good example. A jury summons is a piece of paper that says if you do not appear in court, I can hold you in contempt of court and toss you in jail. So a summons is issued by a judge. So, yeah. There's a couple more cases at the end of your book. These are actually usually pretty interesting. I think one of these is a case where this guy was a victim of a robbery, was a victim of a robbery, home invasion, I think. And officers responded to their home, and while they were at the home investigating the home invasion, they found that Law had been counterfeiting money. So there was all this money counterfeiting machinery and counterfeit money all over the place. And so the officers basically told Law, well, we're not really here for money laundering or I'm sorry, the counterfeiting. We're here just to investigate that home invasion. So he told them all about the counterfeiting, and ultimately, I believe the courts did not allow those statements in. anyways, the case law at the end of every chapter is actually really interesting. So check it out. There's a summary. We just went through all this.